If you stick a knife in my back 9 inches and pull it out 6 inches, there's no progress. You pull it all the way out, that's not progress. The progress is healing the wound that's a blow made.
People are suffering. People are dying. Entire ecosystems are collapsing.
Stand up and take on the greed and corruption of the ruling class of this country.
The billionaire class has been taking everything, and the working class has been left scraping, paycheck to paycheck, just trying to survive.
The police department, the FBI, the CIA, those are gangs. You know what I mean? The correctional office. America is the biggest gang in the world.
A solidarity which fears not foreign invasion, because it is bringing all the workers to the point when they will say to their masters, go and do your own killing. We have done it long enough for you.
It's called the American dream, because you have to be asleep to believe it.
Guys, gals, and in-between pals, welcome to the Left 4 Dead podcast. I'm your host, Green Bay's friendly neighborhood Chaos Goblin Queen, joined as always by my awesome co-hosts and best friends, local gayest straight dude Dane Snudden, and everyone's favorite BBL Wongle James Harris.
I'm just going to leave that unexplained.
Future BTS episode. And today's episode is a very special one because we are joined by the most special of our special guests. No shade to Ahmad, he's still special in my heart, always. State Representative Francesca Hong, who is running in the Democratic primary for Wisconsin governor. And Fran, if I can have a moment to glaze you up a little bit, I really appreciate this. I know I speak for all of us when I say we have a very small audience, so the fact that you were willing to come on with us, it means a lot. And as far as you goes, go ahead and introduce yourself if you'd like, and just kind of give us an idea of what led you to the political positions that you have now, I guess.
Yeah, well, it's great to be here. Thanks, James, Dana, and Emma. Doesn't matter the audience size to me. I really appreciate, one, being able to talk to organizers here in Wisconsin, and these are the conversations I prefer over, don't tell my team, but the larger influencer sector, I guess. Yeah, so I'm stoked to be here. And as for me, I'm a very proud daughter of immigrants. I grew up here in the large town of Madison, Wisconsin. And my background's in hospitality. I came up through amazing public schools, and the plan was to go to college. And actually, I wanted to be a sports journalist, work this sports center desk, but ended up dropping out of UW to pursue cooking. Worked multiple minimum wage jobs, and eventually worked my way up to be toot my own horn here, one of the youngest female chefs in Madison. And in 2016, my amazing son George was born, and I also opened a restaurant that same year. I do not recommend doing those two things at the same time. Yeah. And in 2016, we opened the restaurant during a time of immense chaos and cruelty, right? That was Trump regime 1.0. And I wanted to make sure that our restaurant and the way that we can nourish people and provide a third space where folks can come as they are, that was really important to me. And it was, that's when I started organizing. I didn't know I was organizing at the time, but gathering people, talking about collective fears and what we can do to take action. And for me, that was forming the Culinary Ladies Collective and organizing fundraisers to raise money for Planned Parenthood. We literally had a cookie drive, a bake sale to raise almost $20,000 for Planned Parenthood. And that helped me build relationships with other community leaders and organizers. And in 2020, during another moment of chaos and crisis, the community asked me to run for office, because I think that was a time where we saw in the state legislature really a failure in leadership and the dangerous policies that Voss was, I shouldn't say he wasn't trying to pass. The Republicans didn't come to work for almost 300 days in the state legislature while they were undermining public health. Yeah, it was wild. But are we surprised?
Yeah.
And I was yelling at Voss on Twitter, and I thought, well, maybe it's time to yell at him face to face. So ran just a campaign very similar to ours now, where we wanted to do things differently, make sure to uplift community leaders through like online cooking demos and just bringing folks in from like local government and nonprofit organizations and everyday folks to talk about, how we're navigating a worldwide pandemic.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think, me being a small business owner and a mom and an organizer, these were things that folks wanted to see in a leader, and actually having a working class person,
Yes.
kind of like
Yeah.
relentlessly represent working class people. And I think it's important for folks in power not to like say things, I'm a voice for the voiceless. It's like, no, our systems are designed to make government inaccessible, and our
Right.
politicians like lifted up on these platforms where they should be sharing those platforms to ensure folks who are, closest to the issue should be closest to the power, because they understand the solutions and what they need better than the folks who aren't having those experiences. So I've been a state representative now in the Wisconsin Assembly for the last 5 years. And then this year, when Governor Evers decided that he was not going to run again, I had to step back and took a moment to figure out what does this moment need. And it's really a movement to amplify and participate and grow more working class people power, as like more and more people are recognizing that they're getting screwed. The
Yeah.
systems are rigged. We had Elon Musk come in and like try to fucking buy the election in
Right.
spring of 25. And I was like, as that single mom and organizer and someone from the restaurant industry, like, I think I've got an opportunity here to really grow a movement and use a campaign to build organizing infrastructure and make, give opportunities for more people to make a difference and be a part of a transformational change, which is what we want to do through this campaign, and be relentless in pushing for bold progressive policies, which is how we should be meeting this moment through a movement. So we launched my campaign for governor in just over a month ago now. The response has been amazing. We're close to now almost 700 volunteers.
Wow.
We know that we've got more donors than any other candidate. So we are keeping our donor average, donation average, like under $50 a person right now. And this is
Awesome.
grassroots working class people powered through and through. And it's been really cool.
Hell yeah. That's awesome.
And then
First-
Jake.
First, I'd like to thank you just for doing this. Like, no matter what happens, I think it's absolutely huge that you're running a grassroots people-powered campaign, because I think people are kind of desperate for an alternative to the corporate-focused uniparty, and I think that's honestly a really big reason why Trump won. But as a fellow hospitality and food service worker, at least for another month until I graduate, I've got this theory. That theory is that the real test of someone's character is how they treat people in those kind of positions. I'm wondering, kind of a two-part question, do you think that's true? And if you do any of these ideas influence why you decide to run a grassroots-only campaign?
I try to show up as my full self as best I can, and especially in spaces of power with, this people who have decision-making power. And being a service industry worker, I'm still a bartender right now, and I do still cook. That it, as you said, it helps me see the humanity in folks and know that everyone deserves, radical, nourishing care. And so I think that my restaurant experience, being a hospitality industry worker, gives me additional power, superpowers, to be able to navigate and advocate these insane spaces of mostly old white men who are just so damn complacent.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I have a background as well, working in food service and hospitality and working for a small business. So I think your kind of resume, so to speak, of having like a small business is really going to make what shouldn't be not palatable more palatable. Because kind of tying into my question, Wisconsin probably has to be one of the hardest states to run in, just with the rural urban divide that we have, and then also with how purple we are. So what are kind of some strategies that you're taking? Because we've talked about on the show before, like progressive policies are something that people want. They just don't necessarily like know that they want it and that type of thing.
They hear the labels like socialism and they're like, ah.
Yeah. Well, being a democratic socialist means that I care about everyone, that I, regardless of political affiliation, I want folks to be able to live with dignity, economic security, and democratic socialism is more democratic than
Right.
what we're seeing right now because we want equality and freedom for everyone. That and I'm going to push back on rural urban divide. I think that working class people, there is a shared struggle, which means
Yeah.
we can take shared action because we care about a lot of the same things. So when we we have to honor people's lived experiences of that shape them from the communities that they're in, but we also have to remember that the system has been designed and is currently, like, fascism is designed to divide us and distract us and blame one another, as opposed to the ruling class powers of corporate mega corporations, oligarchs, billionaires, and people who are beholden to corporate power instead of working class people. So I try to approach all of the conversations that I'm having with folks from different backgrounds with, hyper focusing on affordability and dignity, and like, you should get to make more money if you want to and have stability and be able to take rests and vacations, and
Yeah.
these things are going to require a system that allows working class people to do that. um, and I bring it back to issues. Like, turns out folks across the state really care about their public schools. It is a very uniting issue. People know that affordable and high quality childcare, that they need that, especially employers, right? And
Right. Yeah.
as we've got, a diminishing workforce, and as we hear a lot about birth rates right now, and it's like, well, I think if childcare was cheaper, people would want to have more kids.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I may not say universal childcare. I may not always say free childcare, right? But those are the policies listed on my website. That's what I believe in. But in conversations, I might say, like, everyone, like, you should have affordable childcare. You shouldn't have to pay astronomical rents to live in housing, and so that's really the strategy, is to focus on the issues, recognize folks' humanity, and that we have really been robbed of our like, ability to be compassionate and critical thinkers, right? Like, there's a reason Republicans have been dismantling public education. So that's what I keep in mind. And I think the fact that we've got volunteers from all across the state, and people who are ready to be a part of a movement, that's that means our strategy is working.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Actually, ping pong's off that a little bit. So I was born and raised in a city, but it was like a small city, Bakersfield, California. It was like a small farm town, but by California standards, it was bigger than Green Bay, so not that small. But one thing and I've also lived in rural areas, and one thing that I've noticed throughout that, and this is like from California to Virginia, Tennessee, Louisiana, here, like all over, is that I think a lot of that divide that does exist is there because people that are in rural areas can't easily get to cities that often. And
We should
so
abandon trains.
Yes.
exactly. And so they end up like all they have to go off of is what they're being told on Fox News or whatever talk radio station that they listen to. And so that's why they buy into this blood in the streets stuff. Like I've literally seen people say that Green Bay is like crime ridden, and I'm sitting here in Green Bay like, where? Like other than wage theft, which is the biggest form of crime or like the biggest price thing or the biggest cost of crime, I should say, in the country. There's really not that much crime here. But
and crime is
given
like
that,
down in the state, like has been going down over the last couple of years. But
yeah,
like, what are
nationwide
facts
too,
when
like it's
people want their feelings?
Right.
and so off of that, what would you pursue as far as high-speed rail, bus lines, whatever it is, to help connect our rural and city communities a little better?
Yeah, I think a lot of those decisions can be made at the local level. Obviously, the governor has the biggest megaphone in the state. So, being unapologetically pro public transit and pro public goods for the public is really important to reiterate. But in order for local government to be able to enact and implement and invest in public transportation, they need their fair share from the state. Republicans with austerity measures have defunded our shared equity or our shared revenue obligations. And so, like Madison, we get about 19 cents back from every dollar that we put into the state. Robin Voss has not paid his utility bill. We've got multiple public state buildings in Madison, and we pay utilities to keep those buildings operational. So that means like local governments are having to make harder and harder decisions, and priorities like public transportation kind of go to the wayside at times. So this is about making sure that one of the first things I want to do is make that shared revenue formula more equitable and ensure that local governments get what they need. Because like rural areas, even with, us Act 12 and us kind of, changing and some folks, everyone getting a little bit more, I would say crumbs, they didn't get enough in their they didn't get enough from the state to purchase a snowplow. Like those are upwards of $200,000, and we have communities who have to share them with other municipalities, and they're strapped, and it's because of the policies at the state government. And there's a lot that is promulgated to the state that hinders local government to be able to do what they need to meet the services that folks in their communities need.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, we see that a lot. I mean, obviously we're in Fox Valley, so we see a lot of that with even like just something as simple as like getting electric busing and stuff like that. And it's as I have
Or like, well, that's not going to work in the cold now, and it's like, okay,
bro, the sun still comes out if you got you need solar panels, and last I checked you can plug those big ass buses into big ass batteries.
yeah.
right.
And also like another thing too, sorry, it's like tangent but related to the public transit thing. One of the things that I want to work on here in Green Bay as a focus is our bus system is like it's good. It's very good. It's very thorough. But the only problem with it is we have this system where like it stops at like I think it's 6 during the week and then like 4 on Saturdays, and then it doesn't run at all on Sundays. So it's like if you have a job on Sunday, you're kind of SOL. And if you work nights, you're also kind of SOL. Like you rely on public transit. And so we're kind of like making it to where if you're a 9 to 5er, well, you're still kind of SOL because the bus stops running before you get done. But like that, as somebody who uses public transit a lot, that's been always my frustration. Is there are so many times where I just can't use the bus line when I need to, even with our cool, like I call it Uber, but it's the bus Uber system. And then we end up having to use the private
shift, right? Like a bakery shift, or you're closing the bar or restaurant late night. It's also a safety issue. Like we had a lot of people who ended up Ubering to work, even though I wanted us to be able to put out like bus vouchers through the city. Like they're not going to run at 2 a.m. And it's it's deeply inequitable, and most of those folks who are working third shift or late night are working class people.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that is definitely something that, again, like, people would love, but they might not necessarily like. I mean, to be quite honest, I think that a lot of people just think that that's not possible now because of how much, leadership we've had that hasn't cared truly about people. Like, I remember there were plans to get like a high-speed rail, so to speak, from like, Green Bay to Milwaukee or something like that. And I think, it's hard living through
Scott
these
Walker
times.
fucked that up.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's one of the things. Like, I have a thing where every episode I find a way to fit in me taking a big steamy one on Ronald Reagan. So this will be my fuck Ronald Reagan moment. But that's one of those things that Ronald Reagan and Republicans after him kind of did to us. Like, they deeply damaged us, and Democrats like Clinton didn't help either. Which is that whole, like, the scariest 5 words in the English language are "I'm from the government, I'm here to help," or whatever it is. And it created this like entire generation where people don't the same people that benefited from government programs when they were younger, boomers and Gen X, torched those programs for everybody that came after them. And a lot of Gen Xers unfortunately ended up like right on the cusp of that, where they were also getting screwed by it, but it was primarily millennials and then Gen Z and Gen Alpha that are getting screwed by that. And one of those ways, I think, is like Scott Walker's a good example, where he kind of took this Reagan-esque approach in Wisconsin of like, cutting back on union rights, cutting back on like pretty much everything that he possibly could to make it to where it's a nightmare to do anything. And so now we have to try to make the argument to people that government is not evil, it's just a tool, and that tool can be used for evil like it is right now on the federal level, or it can be used for good like it is in places like our neighbors in Minnesota. But it's like an uphill battle making that argument because people are so ingrained to think of the government as inherently corrupt and incompetent. And then when the government is acting
right now it is like
and it's kind of proving the point, which sucks. So it's like the argument that we have to make is no, we can make government work for everybody. We just need to get people in power that actually want it to work for everybody, not people that want to make it work as little as possible.
And the people in government should work.
Yes.
I told y'all about the 300 days Republicans didn't show up for session. The federal government workers, Republicans right now in Congress and Senate haven't showed up in a month. And you're absolutely right. Government should be a tool and a force of good. And austerity, honestly, is fucking theft and torture.
Yeah,
it is 100%.
Look at what FDR did, and then Reagan coming in and shitting on all of it, as you said. And then Dems not acting, like meeting the urgency of that moment yes, Affordable Care Act was huge. Getting that through was pretty much a miracle. But why did it take till Obama for people to recognize that healthcare is a human right? And Dems didn't really do shit about public education, honestly. It's over the multiple administrations, and the right has been planning to dismantle it because they know it's a democratic institution, and now it's one of the last remaining ones. Like, public education is where my heart is, and it's what our kids deserve, our strong schools, and we should do teachers as much as doctors.
Yes,
and they shouldn't have to be spending their own money on supplies. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, I went to 2 of the roughest, in quotes, schools in Green Bay, and just the difference with, I was lucky that all the teachers at those schools deeply loved the students, and like a lot of the teachers had went to that school and came back and everything. So it's great to have somebody that supports public education. But kind of a question tying into crazy Republicans that we were talking about. This race is bound to get Trump's attention if it hasn't already. I haven't personally seen anything. He's out
probably
here
wait until after the
Yeah, How important is it that we have a leader, especially with everything going on, that is going to stand up to Trump?
Fighting for Wisconsin people, knowing that you have the responsibility to protect everyone. It's got to be done through both policy and communications and actions that set the tone. Like, if I don't want us to continue to rely on law enforcement, but if the National Guard has to be out here arresting ICE agents, like that's
Yeah.
we have to meet state-sanctioned violence with, parts of the state sometimes. It's the I think that we can go harder on the communication side, especially because, Trump, if he's fighting with me on, through press releases and Twitter, like proves even more that these are unserious people,
Right.
doing dangerous things. But how much does he even know about the government to be able to, recognize? I can't believe I'm saying this, but the Republicans have been advocating for states' rights and, being fucking the Federal Society and fighting for federalism. And it's wild, the hypocrisy, but are we surprised? And I think it's the job of the duty of the executive to make sure people know that we're fighting, and we're fighting on multiple fronts. And we are not going to tolerate someone who is going to keep the executive from doing their duty of protecting Wisconsinites.
Yeah. And one thing growing up conservative that I always noticed was that that's kind of how it went, was like everybody that I knew in the Christo nationalist space was very much like, they would advocate for all these things like states' rights, for example, and all these things that sounded cool on paper. And then once they were in power, it no longer mattered because, like, for example, the fact that whenever you look at these Christo nationalists, and you look at their platform level, and then you look at the words of Jesus, and it's like, these don't match at all. Like, they're very incongruous.
Yeah.
And it led me to the conclusion that for them, they don't, which I think is why a lot of the times the hypocrisy argument, unfortunately, doesn't work on them too much, is that they don't care. They don't have shame. They are advocating only for whatever it gets them wherever they want to go. And if they have to change that on a dime, it doesn't matter. And that's why we're seeing them like literally launching a civil war on blue states at this point.
Yeah.
And
for them, it's feelings, not facts.
Right.
Feelings, not facts. And sometimes it's like, fuck your feelings.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love that we're saying that to them now, and they're like losing their mind over it. It's so great. One of the things too, so I like that you said the thing about fighting, because that's something that people are hungry for with Democrats right now. Like, it's sad that the shutdown fight, the Democrats have Democratic leadership has done like the barest minimum on the shutdown fight in Congress, and it's already shot their poll numbers up by like 7%. Or not 7, they're up +7, but that's like a huge shift of like 20 points or something. Because they were underwater because they weren't fighting, and people were like, hello, what's going on? And then one little tiny ounce of fighting, and all of a sudden everybody's like, okay, this is what we wanted. Like, thank you for giving us something.
Yeah.
So
because they're now Republicans are on their back heels, right? They're literally lying on government websites. USDA is blaming Democrats and then using foul language about immigrants and social insurance programs. And it's like they know that at the end of this week, today's the 28th now, on November 1, like when there's oh my gosh, words now, the marketplace opens, right? And people are going to see how much their premiums are going to skyrocket. Like, they're going to see that number that impacts them personally. And they're lying to folks. Like, Mike Johnson straight up lied when it comes to contingency reserves that would fund SNAP. SNAP is designed to be funded through a government shutdown through these contingency reserves, which there's almost $6 billion in there right now. So Republicans are lying, they're choosing cruelty, and they're choosing to make millions of Americans go hungry. And in Wisconsin, there's 700,000 people who rely on our participate in the food share program. And we need about $114 from $114 million. SNAP is all federally funded, and the legislature could come into session and shift appropriations from the existing budget to food share, or we could use existing funds to fund food share. And Mary Felskowski, the Senate president, was like, oh, my heart goes out to folks, but like, this is a federal issue. And it's like,
thoughts and prayers after a shooting type of shit.
it's absurd, but this is who they are. And they're emboldened to be these cruel people, corrupt politicians. And, working class people are recognizing it, and they're not going to stand for it. And I appreciate you saying like Democrats are fighting, but I think it's just as important that they are fighting for folks by fighting alongside them too, right? Which is why organizing is important, which is why, you're seeing people who are drawing these big crowds, and they're like, it doesn't stop after 2026. We have to continue to organize and dismantle the regime. And the fight to fascism requires all of us.
Yeah. And a good example of that too is so Rick Crossan is running in the primary against Tony Weed for the District 8 seat here in Green Bay. And one thing that I've been pointing out a lot lately, because mystifyingly, nobody in local media is covering this, and it's blowing my fucking mind. Because so the situation there is, I've been calling him Epstein endorsed Tony Weed, playing on his Trump endorsed Tony Weed thing, because the House still only needs one vote to get the full release of the Epstein files, because there have been multiple Republicans that aren't signing on to that effort, but saying that they'll vote to release the Epstein files once it gets there, which I'm always like, just get the vote for this step then, so you can get to that step.
That's complacency and cowardice. Yeah.
And so they're doing all this stuff about keeping Congress out of session in the midst of this shutdown and all that, to also keep them from seating Adelita Grijalva in Arizona. So that way she can't be that 218th vote. And so the thing that I've always been pointing out is they only need one vote to make this thing happen, which means Tony Weed could forever have his name in the history books as a hero who like nobody knew who he was except for our district, and we all hate him. But now everybody loves him because he's the guy who gave them he said, I'm going to cross party lines and join in with Thomas Massey and MTG. Sorry, I get to chill every time I say her name, to get the files released and everything. And he could do that. He could be the person who does that. He doesn't.
He's choosing to be a pedophile protector. Like that's.
So that's why
the joke
that
I would just say that over and over again if he doesn't vote, like pedophile protector.
Yeah, that's why the joke that I've been making
is clearly a bipartisan issue.
Yeah. I mean, and he's Epstein endorsed Tony Weed, and then it's the disclaimer is technically Epstein didn't endorse him because he's dead, but I'm sure he'd appreciate the help if he was alive. But that was a slight little aside to fit that in there. But also on the fighting alongside people, Crossan was actually at our No Kings protest here in Green Bay, like right there on the front line marching with people. And I think that kind of stuff from Democrats means a lot to people. Like Brad Lander in New York was arrested and abused by ICE, just trying to protect one of his constituents. Like the more that people are on the ground doing this for their community, the more people are going to start realizing that it is an issue, because it's like they're not just going after us regular people, they're also going after quote unquote powerful people. And it makes all the difference, I think.
Yeah, I think it does. As somebody, Emma and I have both organized a lot in the area, and I could say it's always really nice to have like an older person or something like that come out. Like, or even when I was organizing on campus, like having faculty come out was always like, hell yeah. Like they're with us. They're kind of on that student front. So I did a lot of stuff with the student movement and everything. Our universities are not in a great spot.
Yeah.
And I know we have a
Again,
lot of
thanks,
students
Scott Walker.
that watch this. UWGB in particular is being hit very hard. What goals or plans do you kind of have to kind of help that out? Because I have a lot of friends and comrades that are getting major. I was the last person to graduate with one of my majors, and it's environmental policy. Like it's an important,
By the time I'm able to go
thing.
back, mine will probably be gone
Yeah.
too. I was democracy and justice studies, so.
Well, this goes back to dismantling public education it's by design. And one of the, most important things we can do is reinstate union power. And so
Yes.
repealing Act 10 is the bare minimum, but our public sector workers, our professors, our TAs, all university staff deserve and have a right to a union. UW also, University of Wisconsin schools and tech colleges, they've been defunded for the last 14 years since Walker. And so investing in universities is critical. And I think one of the important things that, they've advocated for every year is bonding authority. They need to be able to borrow at times to meet, funding needs in the schools. And housing is a huge issue for so many students. And things have to go through the building commission, which has a Republican majority right now. And it delays. It's oftentimes they won't vote for that. And yes, we got some buildings through in this last budget, but folks shouldn't have to beg for crumbs. And
Right.
especially when we've been defunding universities for so long, like we need to be aggressive in investing and funding our universities, because it is an investment. Like folks are like, this is instead of a brain drain, we should be able to keep folks who care about their communities, who are choosing their education here in Wisconsin, and to be like the contributions to the workforce. But overall, like folks have a right to a high quality public education.
Yeah.
And that goes from K-12 to higher education. And it's the robbing people of their critical thinking and their compassion. I keep going back to that. And, that's higher ed is where folks can continue to educate other folks, right?
Yeah.
Coming out of teacher education or remaining in academia, like it's so important to fund our universities, and all of our students deserve access and to high quality and affordable higher education.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, the affordability thing is a big issue. I mean, James is not only a parent, but working 2 jobs and on his last, semester. And I remember doing that too. And it's crazy seeing kind of the hurdles that we have to go through just to get a degree.
Right, exactly. I've had to, the only reason I don't have a degree is because I've had to stop and start so many times, because I get to a point where I just can't afford to live while I'm going to school.
Yeah.
So I have to work
so
more
absurd.
at my job, and then no longer can afford to go to school. And it's like, okay, I guess I'll go fuck myself. Pardon my French. Quick tie-in, because I realized we're getting closer to time there. James did want us to ask a question. This kind of goes along with, so when we had Ahmad and we did our episode with him, we kind of went over what we mean when we say like what radicalized you or whatever is more tongue-in-cheek, and it's really more of a like nothing radicalized us. It's just that what's considered radical now is really just us giving a shit about other people besides ourselves, and then trying to implement policy that takes care of those people. Because like at this point, most of the policies that I support aren't going to benefit me that much, but I still support them because it's going to benefit everybody else, and I give a shit about that.
Yeah.
And so what James was kind of going with was, as a small business owner, and also someone who identifies as a socialist of the Democratic Socialist variety, there's a perception of people in social or left-wing spaces in general, but especially socialist ones, that we're anti-business. And in reality, we're often very pro small business. Like everybody I know that's on the left side of the spectrum loves like shopping at small businesses and giving their time to small businesses and all that. And it's just they're often getting overtaken by these big ones that it's not that we don't support them, it's that the system is designed to choke the life out of them until they go out of business.
Yeah.
And so as far as your position as both a socialist identifying person and a small business owner, how do you address those misconceptions?
If we look at our labor history, small businesses and workers were in an alliance to fight mega corporations and privatization and private equity, consolidating power. And so the small business owners, they're the ones who contribute to the local economy. And when we have universal health care, universal childcare, paid leave for all, these are policies that are helping folks go to work. And a lot of people want to work for small business owners because they give a shit, right?
Yeah.
And they care about the community, and their business is like there's a demand from the community, and that demand is going to go up if more folks in the community have economic security and spendable spending power. And so I think that we can be in alliance with small business and recognize that it is going to take our alliance to be able to take on mega corporations and
Absolutely.
further just show and really uncover for folks that mega corporations and the wealthiest are fucking over small businesses too.
Yeah.
So fair taxation. A lot of small businesses, they get we could barely get through our first year because health insurance was so expensive to provide for our workers and ourselves, but it didn't feel right to not offer that, right? And it's also a way for us to have a strong, sustainable workforce who, they just be healthy, but two, that helps us compete with the larger corporations who are offering things I wish we could have offered a 401k. And there are small businesses that do that, really care about their employees. And so it is critical that we are in alliance with small businesses if we want to take on corporate power and monopolies.
Absolutely. And then as far as our wrap-up questions go, we always like to ask a fun little question at the end. Like for Ahmad, it was basically are cats Republicans? Which he lost it. He just was rolling on the floor about that one. That was something that James started. But as far as you goes, I thought it would be kind of cool since we have a lot of college kids as our, not kids, sorry, I don't want to infantilize everybody, college adults as our viewers. One of our favorite or reliable foods is ramen, and I know that you had a ramen restaurant in Madison. What's your favorite recipe?
So our signature ramen, the Morris ramen, is tonkatsu style, but it's not all pork broth. And that's traditionally tonkatsu is, milky, creamy with all porks. But we use the similar techniques, but, we used chicken backs as well. And so and it was important for us to support our small farmers, right? We would purchase whole chickens and make sure that we're using all parts of the chicken and pork bones to make the broth. And so that Morris ramen, and it was topped with a jammy egg, slices of chashu pork belly, bamboo shoots, and it was our biggest seller. And it was the signature. The restaurant was named Morris Ramen, and the Morris Ramen was one of the best dishes.
Nice. Awesome. And then we do also like to end with just kind of quick calls to action. If you have anything, we'll be sure to put your link to your website and everything in the description. But do you have any quick calls to action for anybody? Or
Yes, food is a human right. And we have seen an increase in folks going to food pantries, and there is a real struggle right now to make sure there's enough food on the table. Our pantries need support. People perishable goods are great, but just donating what you can. Cash is king. And I think folks deserve choices and dignity when it comes to food. So there's the pantries know what folks are asking for and need. And I also think that if you can create, the systems, even within nonprofits, can fail folks and leave folks on the margins. So think about paying it forward with gas cards, with grocery cards. Can you ask your local restaurant to have a pay it forward system where people can go in and have a restaurant meal and it's paid for by somebody who is already there?
Yeah.
We keep each other safe. Community care is what we need right now. And so whatever you can donate to help folks combat food insecurity, and be creative about it if you can, is my call to action today.
Absolutely.
Awesome.
And we'll also include in the description to go along with that some links to our local pantries, which Paul's Pantry, it's amazing. They're great. And other than that, my thing is always stay trashy, goblins. Don't let go of the chaos. Also, fuck Ronald Reagan still.
Yes. But it was great to have you, Fran. We were all super hyped when you announced that you were running and everything. So it's an absolute honor to have had the opportunity to talk with you, and look forward to seeing you stop at Green Bay maybe again, hopefully.
Oh, absolutely.
At
Yes.
Safe
I'm
Haven, at
actually,
Sanctuary, we're
I'm
amazing.
gonna be in I'm going to be in Green Bay on November 3rd, and I might be at UWGB.
Ooh,
so I'll
okay.
follow up with y'all. But currently, I think there might be a student event before I chat with the Brown County Dems again. So Green
Nice.
Bay is yeah, we're
the new
making
beating heart of
sure that we're
Wisconsin, so I can
prioritizing y'all. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, I know you got to run, so great to have you as always, and we'll definitely be voting for you. So keep it
Thanks,
up.
Thanks so much for having me on. It was great.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Thank you.